Welcome back on the AM show. Sweetie Abochi making your breakfast or maybe your Milo or tea, whatever beverage you're having this morning, sweet, ushering me into the news review. From wherever you are, thank you for joining us right here on the AM show. Before we get into it, we have an interesting guest for the morning, but you know how we do it. Let's start by acknowledging the entity that makes it possible for us to bring you this segment every weekday. I'm talking about Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. Now, what are they offering you? One, your health is your wealth. Two, if you don't take care of your health, you know what could happen? You could even have resources, money, but not really enjoy life. And that's why this morning I'm proffering for you, if you're a man, to check your prostate, especially if you're after over 40 years old, to check your prostate for free at Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. If you're a woman, to check out your fertility for free at Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic. And thankfully, they have branches dotted across the country, so you could reach out to any of them. Let's start with here in Accra. They are at Spintex, opposite the Shell signboard. If you're in the Ashanti region, Kumasi, Kronomabwe here, behind the Angel Educational Complex, that's where you can locate them. If you're in Takrade, Anaji Estates. If you're in Tema, Community 22, then there's Techiman, Hanswa, and Esiama, and Zima. I'm sure you want to call. Pick up your phone, note these numbers. They are 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. And just the start of the news review, I'm pleased to usher in now. I'm contemplating some words used by my colleague Sweetie Abochi this morning, but I'll save that for later. The NDC's parliamentary candidate for Lambusi, Professor Titus Bayo, he is my guest. Prof? Whoa, Prof, your color and my color, we are color coding. Good morning.
It's like we are in the spirit.
You have Fugu Batakari, I'm also in one, and the colors also. Okay, this is nice. Anyway, let's...
And we are speaking from the ends of the country. We are speaking from Accra, and I'm at Ghana's border with Burkina Faso.
Oh, right. I see. Wait, that's right on the border, right?
Exactly. I'm in Hamilton, just by the border.
Anyway, okay, so here we go. Usually I do this. Instead of going straight into the papers, I like to hear from my guests on pertinent issues. There are so many things happening. There's the latest corruption. Oh, and let me just say this. I know you are the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Lambusi, but when we have these discussions, delve into the papers, I don't like politics. I want the issues as they are, devoid of politics. So, the Corruption Perception Index is out, the latest one. In my blunt thoughts today, I'll talk about it later. But what do you make of that? What do you make of the other circumstances, developments in our country? There's the GFA with the $8.5 million situation, and I've listened to some of the defenses from different quarters, and I am not convinced. Not convinced. Anyway, you want to go to Parliament. What do you make of some of these issues?
All right. So I agree that these are topical issues that we are looking at as a country. The corruption, the GFA bit, and for me, as one who is just transitioning from union leadership, it's not lost on my mind the struggles of the unions, also with regards to their tier 2 contributions, and that is something that also concerns me so much this morning. But with the corruption perception, it's sad that we don't seem to be making progress. And I think as a country, we have not set ourselves up to make progress. And in my personal opinion, I think those that can help us make progress do not wish to make progress. So if you pass a law on asset declaration and say the assets should be hidden, the declaration should be hidden and cannot be assessed, cannot be made public, then really, what was the purpose? If you set up a special prosecutor, make the beautiful laws, and don't permit them the space to work, what are we seeking to achieve? You have Auditor General that starts charging people, trying to fight corruption, and he's handed out of office. Really, do we really want to fight this? So I would say that as a country, I think most of our leadership want to create the impression they are fighting corruption, but not actually fighting corruption, because the beneficiaries of corruption in our country are within the rich and powerful, and they are very difficult to tackle. And sometimes the focus is on political leadership, but I can tell you that at the various ministries, departments, and agencies, you may have technocrats who are aiding in this canker, because if really they were doing their professional jobs, even the top political class cannot pursue any corrupt acts. Because if your chief director does not support that sole source in procurement, he will raise the alarm bell. If your chief director at the ministry does not support those corrupt acts, it will not happen. So to really fight it, first, those making the laws must be determined to fight it, but not just pretend that we want to fight it. And then all hands must be on deck. And that means that people should be willing to sacrifice their personal gain and comfort and earn what they duly deserve. That is the only way we can fight corruption. And we should make it unattractive for people to get into, which means that people who deliberately do that should be punished, and punished very well. And the punishment should be public for everyone to see. So that's my take on that. With the GFA bit, I think at the onset of the tournament, I mentioned that I didn't know about this financial bit, but I said that the Black Stars should not be a cruel hoax. In other words, I said if they know they can carry us far, they should carry us, but they should not entertain us midway and leave us very painful when it hurts most. I think on the benefit of hindsight and everything, well, maybe it's good we exited early so that we do not carry the hopes of the nation midway and crash it. Soccer is one of the things that unites us. But from the early discussions, I'm sad because my initial suggestion that if we are crashing out, we should crash out early. I don't think we are learning from it. I was hoping that when we crash out early, it will be a room for us to sit back, look at how low our standards are falling, and do a holistic approach to this whole thing. I don't know the construct of sports very well in this country, but I don't know why the FA will change all these coaches and no changes can take place at the FA. And if you look at the monies involved and how much we are spending, I'm looking for a day where we will have a Black Star that we will say, okay, if you love Ghana, volunteer to come and play. We are not paying you those fat winning bonuses, but if you love to play in the Black Stars, come in. And let's pay them realistic remunerations that are akin to what we are getting in the country. But you know, it suits the FA to pay those huge bonuses because then they get to pay themselves. And I don't know why government has to fund all of that, and then yet we cannot influence the decisions they make. Why change everybody yet we cannot change the FA? And when we come in, the first thing is the coach. I will tell you that I think the players we send to the World Cup are not hungry enough. If you send our local players, these are people hungry for stardom, hungry for success, hungry to also get the international leagues to play in. They will give up their very best. But if you send people who are already satisfied to go into a battle for food, do you think they'll put in a lot of effort? I'm not sure. So I think we need to grow our sport, our football from the beginning, and just sacking a coach and quickly searching for one is not the best. Honestly, if we do not put ourselves, our house together, we will go to the World Cup and to do the same thing. That's if we qualify. But I think that Ghana football needs a break. We need an overhaul, right from the FA leadership to the management and to the players that we call in. We can get a new breed of people that are hungry and thirsty for success. And I'm sure they can take us very far, not these satisfied ones who have seen it all and are searching for records. I don't think that will help us. But my last take will be on the union struggle. Ben, I can tell you that as a medical doctor, as a union leader, And as a worker in this country, one of the things that scares me and scares most young people is what the future holds in terms of pensions. And anytime somebody plays with your pensions and people sit and watch, I don't know what exactly the term to use to describe that. Because you see, if our present situation is not very hopeful, the only thing to encourage you to continue giving up your best is that there's a future that is better. And so if you are struggling now as a worker and you think that at the very end you end up with nothing, then it's sad. Our current pension system technically is designed to kill you early. You end up, you work several years to get out, the payments they give you as your pensions can depress you to the point of death. Not surprising that very now and then, as a colleague put it lightly, that SNAIT will call you to see whether you are still alive. After about 10 years or 5 years of receiving pension, they want to verify that you are still alive because they know that what they are giving you are not supposed to be alive for more years, you know. And so we brought these pension reforms to introduce a tier 2 that can be managed privately to give the pensioner something substantial. And if government will deduct that money and not pay to the fund managers to invest, and eventually when you push, when I was in the union, they will end up telling you all that we are owing you, we are giving it to you in bonds. And then these bonds, eventually government will put a haircut on them, something we have never seen before. So then you see pensioners picketing that they want money to buy medicines. I think it's the lowest we can ever go in treating our elderly and in preparing for the future.
Right.
So the elderly are relying on the current working class to fight for them. And I think it's important that the unions push. And I plead that government should not let the strikes in the universities continue. They should find the money and pay so it can be invested for the future of these people. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts on such topical matters with us, Prof. And let's get into the major stories now. You do remind me, though, of a Dubai man who I've seen some videos and all that. Apparently, he had shared, even before the commencement of this tournament, that Ghana had major issues with corruption, leadership, and that the team, the Black Stars, wouldn't go far. The very things he spoke about have come to pass. Well, the chickens have come home to roost, if you like. But the Daily Graphic this morning: ensure violence-free election, Reverend Dr. Opuni Frimpong to political leaders. Government to open up dollar power for commercial mining. Move to end dispute, protect boundary lines. Then criminal justice reforms before cabinet. That's according to the Attorney General. Which region is the cleanest? Well, there's a bit on that as well. On the back page, Nigeria favorites against Angola in AFCON quarters. Pictured there, Ademola Lookman and Gelson Dalla. Of course, Lookman with Nigeria and Dalla, Angola's leading marksman. But let's get into the thick of things. The Office of the Attorney General has tabled before Cabinet a bill that seeks to reform the criminal justice system by overhauling the jury system and reducing interlocutory applications in the hearing of criminal cases. Now, the bill, expected to receive Cabinet's approval this month, also seeks to eliminate other aspects of the criminal justice system which result in unnecessary delays. Under the bill, interlocutory appeals in criminal proceedings will be prohibited until the prosecution has closed its case. Additionally, the bill has other stipulations, including providing for cases to be heard on a day-by-day basis, introducing the taking of evidence through video conferences, and proposing that no criminal case should be adjourned beyond 14 days. Apart from that, the Attorney General would determine whether a murder case should be tried by a jury or by the bench. These are some of the developments in there. Let me just add some stories from page 13 so that you can react to them. Of course, starting with that bill to overhaul the criminal justice system. But let's do page 13. Okay, here we go. So the government is set to open up 3 border communities within the Bole district in the Savannah region for commercial mining activities. The move is expected to help end competing interests, which often result in disputes among communities, protect the land and river bodies from illegal miners, and guard the country's international boundary line with its neighbor, Cote d'Ivoire. The mineral resource-rich communities, originally known as Sindhi, have now assumed the names Dollar Power Dablaka and Dollar Power Accra, all located along the international boundary line between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Due to their inaccessibility by road, parts of the communities and their environs within the Bui Wildlife Protection Zone, which is a forest reserve, have been destroyed by activities of illegal miners, as the removal of boundary pillars and forest degradation have been the order of the day. Let's address these two before I bring in the comments about the EC. So, the amendments to our criminal system or our justice system planned, and then government opening up dollar power for commercial mining. Any quick thoughts, Professor Bayu?
So for the amendments, I think they are welcome in generality. Anything to prevent unnecessary delays in the criminal justice system is welcome.
Right.
And if you look at the trial of Major Muhammad that took several years, it's unnecessarily delaying. And so I think that if we review the system to make it faster, it's helpful. I, however, have one or two, reading the details that you have given, I think because the death penalty has been partially, I would like to say, repealed, because in some instances, it can the persons convicted are given life sentences because of the partial repeal, and the situations where some offenses like treason and the rest that it has not been repealed, people are still sentenced by death. But I would wish that we have a complete repeal of it, and then we can hasten the system. My other concern about it is the fact that it's the Attorney General then that decides that you can have a jury system or a bench prosecution.
Right.
That I'm not a lawyer, but I think may be subject to abuse to the extent that we still have the Attorney General being a political appointee, being an Attorney General and Minister of Justice. If we had the two coupled, I would gladly welcome that, so that this important thing is not abused. You know, the jury system has its role, and one of the points is that you get ordinary people to listen to the evidence, go through it, and all of them must agree for you to be convicted. Even if one member of the jury dissents,
right,
you have to go through. But that is not the same with the bench system. So I would think that if we are giving that authority to someone, I would wish it's not given to a politician. I would wish it's given to someone who has ridden through the justice system and is of such high social standing that they will make these calls impartially, and then we are all comfortable.
Right.
So, but I should emphasize that I'm all for speedy trials, but that should not compromise justice and fairness. Because remember, the death sentence in particular, I mean, death is so final that there's no opportunity for review.
Right.
And I would wish that we expand it from our books, because there are instances where someone has been jailed for 20 years and new evidence comes and the person is clear.
Right.
And so where we are trying to hasten the process, that hastening should not still have death sentence on our books, because if you hasten it and there's a 1% or 0.1% margin of error in the justice delivery, and you sentence an innocent person to death, not through the jury system, but something else, it's so final that there will be no opportunity for a review.
Right.
That's my view on that. Now,
all right. And you do know that, in fact, technically, the death sentence, even as we heard recently in the case of the alleged coup makers, technically, that is supposed to be commuted for a life sentence. Yeah. That's what it is technically now.
But that is a discretionary power. As it is today, if you got a president who is bloodthirsty and wants to get someone executed,
bloodthirsty. That's a pretty strong word.
No, I'm just saying we don't have any. But I'm just saying that should you get one, someone can decide to execute people and to be permitted by the law as it stands now.
Right.
So I think that when we make laws, we should make it such that it doesn't give so much discretion to human beings to decide.
Right.
Because life is from God, and we all believe so.
All right. So quickly on the second point you're about to make, we have to get into other stories. So very quickly, back to you.
So briefly, I would just say that from a health background and knowing the Bali terrain well, I welcome what government is trying to do there. But I think that when they are making these decisions, they should look at health impact assessment. That is one of the major things we are missing in this country. When we are opening up a mining site, we do environmental impact assessment. Sometimes we do social impact assessment, but we don't look at the health impact assessment. That entire enclave, people even from the neighboring countries seek help at the Bali District Hospital.
Right.
That hospital, as we speak, just has about 2 doctors. 2 doctors. And if you look at the situation there, it is not that easy. Now, with the impact of Galamsey, the full-blown mining activities, people crossing over from the neighboring countries, the commercial activity will go high. But we should be mindful of the health impact. They are going to get their issues with waterborne diseases, sexually transmitted infections are going to go high. People coming with all sorts of illnesses. How are we equipping the health system there to manage the situation? So when we are looking at the commercial aspect of things, I think we should look at the health aspect as well. But I welcome that intervention that government is trying to do, because as it is now, people are moving across. People are brought in various medical conditions from the neighboring country into this district hospital that I'm talking about, and it's serving such a huge population. And with this development, the population will even go higher. So we should look at that aspect as well. That's what my take.
All right. Thank you for that. Ensure violence-free election, Reverend Dr. Opuni from Born to Political Leaders. Now, political leaders in the country must rise up and ensure violence-free elections this year. A former General Secretary of the Christian Council of Ghana, Reverend Dr. Kwabena Opuni Frimpong, has said, the country had to reverse the disturbing trend of political violence that accompanied electoral activities over the past years with the opportunity presented by this year's elections. And he called for credible, peaceful elections and said it always is a collective responsibility. We don't leave the Electoral Commission alone to handle the challenges we're talking about. We don't leave the security agencies alone. Now, let's go on the international front and just take some headlines. AU urges dialogue between ECOWAS and junta-led states. Of course, that has to do with the recent situation when it comes to the 3, I'm talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, who have decided to go out. Over 20,000 Abyei returnees in urgent need of aid. That's according to an official. I'm talking about Sudan and South Sudan. And Tinubu decries stereotyping of Nigerians as cyber criminals. Well, those are some of the stories there. There's usually something hidden on page 9. Yes, there's also Mark Zuckerberg apologizes to families in fiery U.S. Senate hearing. And Greta Thunberg, you know her, climate activist par excellence. She goes on trial in London for oil protests. She went on trial on Thursday for a public order offense related to a protest outside an oil and gas conference held in London last year. All right. Any very quick reflections on any of these stories, and then we move?
Okay, so I think my quick reflection is on the ensuring violence-free election. Yes, I do agree that political leadership have a role to play, but I think all of Ghana should be appealing to the Electoral Commission, the IGP and his men, and the commander, the chief of army staff, or commander, not the commander in charge. The commander in chief of the army is the president of the republic, but the head of the army in Ghana. I'm saying this because I think if you leave it to the political leadership alone, they might not be very helpful to us. They would help in a way, but if these state institutions that are supposed to be independent can exercise their discretionary powers and their allegiance to the constitution, the people of Ghana, we can ensure violence-free election. The election of 2024 is very critical. And so beginning with the EC, I think the EC should be very collaborative in their effort. They should be open to dialogue in their decision-making process. Don't try new things that are too expensive to try in an election year, and carry everybody along. Listen, have a listening ear. Don't have fixed position. Don't demonstrate intransigence in your position taking, but instead try to be accommodative of other opinions and carry everybody along. Demonstrate fairness. Let people lose honorably, and then let people win fairly. Let the verdict of the people be respected, and no one will have qualms. The next group that would help us is the police and the military and the security agencies that are going to be put together for the election. They'll always work under the IGP. And so the IGP has a critical role to play, that he should know that the nation's hope and aspirations rest with him. And he should pay allegiance to no political party, no government or individual, but to the people of Ghana and to the state of Ghana. The last one will be to the media. And I think that if there is anything that has helped this country, is the role the media has played. The media freedom must be guaranteed. Journalists must be bold, fearless, and credible across the country and move around and let everything that is happening be made known to the public. And the individual Ghanaian must know that this democracy is just for us to select leaders. It is not for us to kill each other. It is government for the people. It is government by the people. It's government of the people. And if we want to execute all of these, we must get involved. But know that it's just for us to select people to serve us, not to go and kill each other for some people to become our leaders elsewhere. No. So no one should be interested in violence. It is just a matter of choosing leaders. And for the international one, I'll just pick that of the ECOWAS and the junta impasse. It's unfortunate that we are getting here, because I tell you, if Africa will be liberated, if Africa will do well, we need Africa as one country. We need Africa to be united. And so even if a small ECOWAS, we cannot hold our own, and we are disintegrating, aligning with foreign powers. That is very unfortunate. I'm wondering what this will mean.
Do you think the military-led countries, I mean, if you go back to some of what they said, you've mentioned foreign influence. They have said that ECOWAS leaders are being influenced by other powers. I mean, some things have happened in recent times, for example, on the back of certain visits from certain parts of the world, right? ECOWAS leaders are being influenced. That's what the military juntas are saying. They are saying they've not been treated fairly. ECOWAS has not looked out for their interests. They are looking out for the interests, the aspirations of their people. And they also cite, in some way, the other surrounding circumstances that lead to coup d'etats, which ECOWAS has not addressed. Does it justify their actions and this move to extricate themselves from ECOWAS?
So I agree pretty much with a lot of their points, but it does not justify a coup. It also does not justify disintegration of ECOWAS.
No, I wasn't asking about whether it justified a coup, I don't think, but I was asking whether it justifies their getting out of ECOWAS.
No, so I think it's a warning sign to ECOWAS. But you notice that even though as they get out of ECOWAS, and they are blaming ECOWAS by being influenced from external forces, they are also aligning with Russia, which is also external. And so it's neither here nor there. I think that, yes, they have a lot of justification for what they are saying, because we can see in a country that their uranium is providing almost 85% of the power in France. What is the percentage of Niger that has electricity? And Africa itself, how are we tapping into these resources? And if you look at ECOWAS will sit down, they pick up all the signals that things are not going well. Leaders are suppressing the freedoms of inhabitants in the country, and they don't care, or citizens in that country, and they don't care. Leaders are tinkling with the constitution to stay longer, and ECOWAS is quiet because they themselves, a lot of the leaders in ECOWAS are guilty of these offenses. If you talk to aligning to foreign forces, they do this alignment, and painfully, not in the interest of the nation, for personal benefit. Right. You will have a president with such huge foreign reserves. Meanwhile, the nation itself is poor. So these international alliances have not benefited us in a lot of ways. And that's why I said that I agree with their reasoning. But I would have thought that in line with those reasoning, they could stay in ECOWAS with a new breed of thinking that they are bringing and force all of ECOWAS to think that, look, we don't need these foreign forces. I have uranium in Niger. You have a lot of gold in Ghana. Nigeria has a lot of oil. Someone has a lot of timber. What can we do as Africa so that we become that power block that the rest?
Professor Bayo, I completely understand you. That would be the best situation, ideal situation. But they're also saying that, I mean, look at these countries. Isn't it a failure of diplomacy as well? Look at what the engagement has been. At a point, there was even a threat of military action, which has vaporized, amounted to nothing. It was all talk. So if you look at the diplomatic overtures of ECOWAS towards these groupings, don't you smell something? I mean, when this came up, ECOWAS had spoken about the contingent leaving Abuja to one of those countries. I don't know whether Niger, and it had fallen through and a whole lot. It was laughable. I don't know. But ECOWAS itself, when it comes to even playing the diplomatic card, I don't feel has done much. It hasn't extended enough to have convinced these people. It's always been fight, fight, and fight. There was a time when these leaders even came to, I believe it was Accra. Do you know what?
Yeah.
The coup leaders or whatever were dressed in their military fatigues. They were told to go and dress in a civilian whatever and come. How does their dressing affect, you know? When you do that, obviously, the person will not judge with you.
No, and you see, ECOWAS lost this from the beginning. If you look at it, there was a preventive stage that ECOWAS could have done something about. The medical term would have called the incubation stage. ECOWAS was there and saw what was happening in these countries. The instability, their struggle with Islamic jihadists, their struggle with terrorists. ECOWAS didn't extend a helping hand. Their alien leaders could not help, and no one did anything about it. When the people decided to take their law, the law into their own hands, which is wrong, then ECOWAS approached it first with threats. Why issue an empty threat if you know you can't buy? And I think it's the worst thing to do, to threaten to do something you know definitely you cannot do. Then you backtrack. And instead of being going with dialogue, you start with a threat. So how then, that is where it all broke down. And that's as you are saying. What is the value of dressing? If I'm an army person, a military person inside, and you force me to wear a cloak or wear a cassock, how does that change my thoughts? How does that change my submissions? These are serving military officers. And for them to interact with you, want them to change their clothes? Really? So I think that ECOWAS has not done well. But I'm telling you, one of the reasons is that some of these ECOWAS leaders themselves, even though they are elected, are dictatorial in their actions in their own countries. You know, and so some of them are worse than military leaders. And some of them are using the constitution to suppress the people. Some of them are using the law to suppress and oppress more than you would even have in a military regime. And so what moral turpitude do you have if you are such a person to stand and condemn another person? That is where ECOWAS lost it. So ECOWAS needs to rebrand itself, have a sentinel system that early warning system that picks up disturbances in various countries. There is a non-interference, but there should be dialogue. I have said that the peer review mechanisms within ECOWAS, I don't think it's effective. If it's effective and in your country, people want to demonstrate and they are brutalized, people are using the law to prevent anyone from demonstrating. People are doing unthinkable things and none of you says anything about it. At least just a statement from ECOWAS to condemn such acts. Someone changes the constitution and stays on forever. And ECOWAS says nothing. And then when the citizens begin to rise up, because if you don't allow ordinary citizens to demonstrate, then the only people who can demonstrate is the army. You see, to vent out how the nation feels. But if people can come out and say, we don't like this, and people will respect their opinion, then you can trust that there's some opportunity for people to air divergent views. So I think ECOWAS need to look at this.
Let's get into the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Make tracks. Just look at a few more stories and then we can go. Danger looms, e-waste dump site under siege. Now, Parliament Environment Committee raises alarm over encroachment, calls for eviction of residential facilities. Support Africa to deal with poverty and deprivation, that's according to President Akufo-Addo. Major General Opon Pepra assumes office as CDS. ECG cautions customers against fraudsters using unapproved Momo numbers. Let me do two stories very quickly. Well, the ECG has warned you, so if you go and deal with anybody, send any Momo, it be your case. Wow, awesome. Support Africa to deal with poverty, deprivation, President appeals to world leaders. President Akufo-Addo says a well-developed and prosperous Africa will be good, not only for Africans, but for the entire global community. He has therefore called on leaders of the developed world to focus their attention on supporting the continent in its development agenda in order to enable it deal with the doldrums of poverty and deprivation it found itself in. But we've been here for decades, and this conversation has gone on. And Mr. President, you've had almost 8 years. If I asked you, poverty, deprivation, are Ghanaians better off today? What would you tell me? Prof, hold your horses. Let me just. I was posing that question to Mr. President. I like having this one-sided banter with him from time to time. I know wherever he is, he watches me. I know that for a fact. And I can't hear him respond, but whatever his response is, I'm sure it will get him thinking about a few things. Danger looms, e-waste dump site under siege. Now, the Parliamentary Select Committee on Environment, Science and Technology has said it will push for the eviction of residents who have built close to the e-waste collection center around the Atomic Energy Commission. Only in Ghana. Some things happen only in Ghana. Expressing worry about the springing up of residential facilities around the e-waste dump site, the committee said it would impress upon the local assembly to evict the encroachers in order to avert any future disaster. Quick reactions in about a minute for me.
Yeah, so I would say that the president's call for the developed country to help us doesn't sit well in my mind.
Oh, why?
For a president that is campaigning on Ghana beyond aid, why do you think that is the...
No, but Ghana, let's be fair. Ghana beyond aid, there's no country that is completely beyond aid. Not even the US, not the UK.
No.
So,
so my point
it must be put into context.
My point is that if, as a group of people, you want us to elevate ourselves from poverty, I don't think that decision lies with the West. That's my whole point. I don't think that any country has so much the supreme interest of another country that they will come and help you out of your poverty, come and help you out of your deprivation. There's a global competition. So we have to get to the point of knowing that we have to try and develop ourselves.
Right.
We should do a proper wealth redistribution and think of the ordinary masses, do equitable distribution of resources in the country to elevate people from poverty. When you have unemployment going up, when you have few decisions that are pushing a lot of people into the poverty line, and then we cry to the West. My call to the president this morning is that no country out there is going to come and develop us or elevate us from poverty or take us from deprivation.
All right.
Let us as a people look at what we can do internally. They can help us in other ways. But you have the right to take out of poverty. You should not look to the West.
All right.
But to the e-waste one...
Very briefly, Prof. Very briefly. I want to run a few things.
Very briefly. I would just say that the district assembly or municipal assembly in this locality is failing the citizens. If the citizens cannot remember or cannot recognize the harm that living there will cause, I expect somebody in that district or municipal assembly who knows the hazard to know. Very soon, we are going to have people with limb defects, babies born without legs, babies born with all sorts of deformities because of the hazards that are hazardous chemicals that are coming from this area. So please, it's an urgent call. Let's protect the citizens.
The Daily Guide is where I'll wrap. Cocaine dealers jailed 60 years. Your strike is needless, NLC tells education unions. I know you'll talk about that. Drama at Antoa Shrine, Wontumi versus Kokoso chief. And then SML enveloped in disinformation. And finally, maintain electoral ink, majority leader Osei Mensah Bonsu says. You can share on a maximum of 2 matters and then we are gone. 30 seconds is all you have. 30 seconds, Prof.
Okay, so I'll go for maintain indelible ink. I plead that, yes, I join a majority leaders call. Please, EC, maintain the indelible ink because our biometric device fails, and where it fails, indelible ink still remains our gold standard. So I think we should maintain additional verification with the BVD. It's not bad. Let's maintain it.
All right.
I think if you give me 30 seconds, that's all I can say.
Your strike is needless. NLC.
Yeah, the NLC saying the strike is needless. This has been the position of NLC all this while. But the people at NLC should know that they would also go on retirement. They will not be in that position forever. And if they see their grandmother or father who is gone on pension and has nothing to go home with, will they be happy?
Okay.
So just before calling it needless, they should look at what the core issues are. And NLC is supposed to be an arbiter. So when you make comment like this, it doesn't sit well with the unions. You pass laws that the government doesn't implement. And yet when the unions talk, then you quickly side with government and telling them it's needed. Why are you not telling government that go and do ABCD in accordance with our ruling? Because most of these issues, the NSC has ruled on them in favor of the unions.
Right.
And government has not obliged.
Okay.
And they'll leave them and come back to the unions. That's what I'll say about it.
Thank you. In a short space of time, you've said quite a lot on these matters. Prof, thank you so much for joining us. Professor Titus Bayua is the NDC's parliamentary candidate for Lambusi. He has been my guest this morning. Well, my blunt thoughts today are titled Ghana, the Lair of Corruption and the Citadel of Hypocrisy. Ghana, the Lair of Corruption and the Citadel of Hypocrisy. Well, I'll be sharing that with you. But before we veer into sports, Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic helping us bring you this segment. They're offering prostate screening for free if you're a man, fertility screening for free if you're a woman. Just reach out to them at any of their branches across Pintex opposite the Shell signboard, Kumasi, Chronomabwe here behind the Angel Educational Complex, Takrade Anaji State Tema Community 22, Techiman Hanso and Esiaman Zama. The call lines 0244 867 068 or 0274 234 321. Endpoint Homeopathic Clinic, the end to chronic disease. Sometimes I pay attention to the way I talk. I think I could have been a good rapper. What do you think? Sports up next.